really excited to get things started today officially, and then just throughout spring training can begin to prepare for what's ahead, which is 162 battles ahead of us, and then more beyond that. And so it's exciting to get that journey started.
Mariners spring training is here, but how do I feel about the Mariners going into spring training? You will find out after a word from our sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a mobile ticketing app for sporting events, concerts, and other events. They make the buying experience easier by the app ranking each ticket from 0 to 10 to see if you are getting a good deal, and you can see exactly where you are sitting. I regularly use that app, and I have had nothing but a fantastic experience with SeatGeek. Use my promo code RoofTopSports to get $20 off of your first purchase. Link to the code, app, and website will be in the description, so take advantage, and thank you. And welcome to Mariners Spring Training. This is the Rooftop Sports, and just wanted to say, out of the blue, happy Cobra Kai Day. So for anyone that watches Cobra Kai, which was the continuation of the Karate Kid series, that show just released their final 5 episodes, and I just watched it. And for anyone that has any feelings on it and want my opinions, all I can say is go watch it, because I don't do spoilers. Now, I'm getting a little bit off topic. That's how my day pretty much started, as I watched it on midnight release. But let's get into Mariners baseball, because that is the bigger topic. So what we're going to go into for this show is the Alex Bregman signing by the Boston Red Sox, and maybe that could affect the Seattle Mariners. How will it? You'll find out. Then we got spring training preview, where we got the 26-man roster predictions out of Ryan Divish of the Seattle Times, and the Mariners prospects to watch. And then we got Mariners streaming issues, where they did release a schedule which did receive quite a bit of backlash. And then I have a very special announcement. It includes me and Trident Podcast. Now, originally today we were supposed to have a show together. It was going to be tonight at 6, but unfortunately he wasn't able to make it. But I do have an announcement based on him and I. So stay tuned for that, or skip to the portion where it does say announcements in the chapters of this YouTube video. Now let's get into Alex Bregman. So as of yesterday, Alex Bregman just signed a huge contract with the Boston Red Sox. They were able to pull it off after months of negotiations, months of offers. And let's take a look at the figures that he got. Alex Bregman's contract. He signed a 3-year, $120 million contract with an average annual salary of $40 million. Everything guaranteed. Sounds like a very typical Scott Boras kind of contract. So that means, and he also has an opt-out option going for the 2026 season, and including player options. So basically this could be just a 1-year contract where maybe he'll have an opportunity to test the market for the 2026 season. So we will see how that goes. Now, how does this affect the Mariners at all? So just about maybe a couple months ago or so, the Mariners were in trade talks with the Boston Red Sox to get rising star Tristan Casas of the Boston Red Sox, and they were going to do it out of the Luis Castillo trade. But unfortunately, the Mariners did not do that trade for a couple of following reasons. One, Boston was trying to offer Masataka Yoshida, who does have a very significant contract. So the Mariners unfortunately did not want to take on that contract, which I was really against, because I actually wanted this contract, or this trade, to happen. Mariners could have gotten an upgrade of a designated hitter over the likes of Mitch Haniger and Mitch Garver, and this could have leveraged Mitch Garver more into the backup catcher role, which he pretty much is anyway. But Mitch Haniger is just an absolute problem. Like, I cannot fathom having Mitch Haniger be the designated hitter unless it's like also Donovan Solano, who will also be splitting time with Luke Raley at first base. But Mitch Haniger is just not the Mitch Haniger that we remembered and love. He is clearly not his 2021 form, and he's clearly not even his 2022 form. When we look at his numbers, he was basically 2010 Ken Griffey Jr. without the home runs and the extra base hits. And also, Masataka Yoshida, you would have had at least a very consistent designated hitter for the Mariners, and he does not necessarily need power to be successful. Now, granted, his defense is really bad, but at the same time, if you have the bat to make up for it, then it does make sense, especially when you have plenty of outfield depth of Victor Robles, Julio Rodriguez, and Randy Arozarena, and of course, Luke Raley in case first base is being used by somebody else. But yeah, I think they should have went for that trade. And Tristan Casas, they didn't really get much into him. Tristan Casas, he was going to be a power hitter with a 40 home run upside. He's been injured prone quite a bit, but he has a huge amount of potential, so that's why I would have been willing to do that trade. But yeah, but with Boston and their lineup, especially with their infield being a little bit congested, I would have thought that maybe the Mariners can re-explore the opportunity to go for Tristan Casas, but I think if that trade is on the table again, it's probably going to include not only Tristan Casas and maybe to get Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida, you would think that now Boston's going to say, well, we also want prospects. And, of course, we would want Luis Castillo because now they're going to want to offload as much as that contract of Masataka Yoshida. Now, the other factoring reason, now I did say Tristan Casas. I meant to say Tristan Casas, so my apologies. The other factoring reason why the Mariners did not go for Tristan Casas was also because he bats terribly at T-Mobile. In 7 games, he bats .160. He struck out 10 times with 3 walks. He hasn't hit a home run, and he's only had 1 extra base, so I guess they're trying to use that as a reason why they wouldn't go for him, but I think that's a cop-out reason. I think 7 games is not really a fair assessment. And also, you have to consider that Mariners have the best starting rotation in baseball, so that's got to also play a factor why Tristan Casas wasn't exactly great at T-Mobile Park in those 7 games. But with the hitting coaches of Edgar Martinez and Kevin Seitzer, Mariners should definitely take a chance on it, and they'll teach him how to adapt at T-Mobile Park. And with also Masataka Yoshida, he can hit well at T-Mobile Park as well. Like, he doesn't need to hit home runs to be any kind of success. So I really do think the Mariners should go for it. I really do. But the thing is, I just don't think they will. But even if the trade doesn't happen, this does help the Mariners still a little bit because Houston, as if they moved on from Alex Bregman after rumors that he was going to return and that Houston actually tried to bring him back. Well, that's not happening. So maybe Houston does get a little bit weaker for letting go of Alex Bregman. So maybe the competition will be a little bit easier, but this was totally the season for the Mariners to really just up that payroll and to show no mercy to the other 4 teams. The Houston Astros, the Athletics, Texas Rangers, who I expect to be back into more playoff form due to if everyone's healthy, and the Angels, at least they're trying to spend money to make themselves competitive and not so much of a laughing stock. So even though it does make it a little bit easier for the Mariners, I just don't think it will be enough to guarantee the Mariners a spot for the American League West in the division as a division championship. So I think Mariners, I know they say that the roster is set, which I refuse to believe that roster is set. But I think they should make that one last trade. Go get Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida or get anything of impact because maybe with Boston already getting Alex Bregman, maybe the Mariners can get the likes of a Nico Horner or a Nolan Arenado. Did I even say that name right? Correct me if I'm wrong if I did. Blast me in the comments if you did that, but hit the like button while you're at it. So that will do it for me with Alex Bregman, Tristan Casas. I mean, I'm going to say that maybe that AL East division is probably going to be much more intense, of course, with the Yankees. Tampa Bay Rays are always going to be hanging in there. So big watch out for the American League East because also the wild card is going to be a little bit more difficult for the Mariners, in my opinion, on that one. Then let's move on to spring training preview. Now, according to Ryan Divish, now before I get to Ryan Divish, my apologies, Teams have just reported to spring training. We just got the bullpen, and the batters will be in there shortly as well to take batting practice swings on the field, as if we saw Cal Raleigh taking some practice swing. I think I saw Julio Rodriguez taking some practice swings as well. We also saw Bryce Miller taking some practice pitches, along with that Mariners bullpen. Now, to Ryan Divish, he made his predictions for the 26-man roster, and I do want to go over that. Here it is. So Ryan Divish, here's his starting rotation prediction, which is as predictable as it gets. For the starting rotation, Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu. I do disagree with it, not because of the starting five that was chosen, but I don't think that Luis Castillo is a number one pitcher anymore. He may be one of the top pitchers in baseball, but I don't think that he is the best out of that Mariners rotation. I think that number one spot should be either given to Logan Gilbert or George Kirby. So I would rather just start any of those two, but not Luis Castillo. I see Luis Castillo as more of a 3 guy, and as years go by the end of his contract, he may just be a 5 guy. Bryce Miller and Brian Wu are the ones I'm really excited about. They are very young guys. They have really high upside, and they're still in their pre-arbitration years, as if we got George Kirby and Logan Gilbert already in arbitration years. But Bryce Miller, who made huge strides last season along with Brian Wu, I think those are going to be the more 2 pitchers I'm going to be watching other than my favorite starter, George Kirby. But what I am concerned about for the starting rotation, not only for the possible decline of Luis Castillo, I'm also concerned for the health of Brian Wu, because last season he started the season injured. 2 seasons ago, he had a little bit of an injury scare, which nearly took him out for the entire season. So that is something to watch. And the Mariners' prospect depth on the rotation is pretty thin. It's really just Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock, so I don't know if those guys are going to be enough to offset any injury problems. And also, this is going to be the starting rotation where you're going to see Dan Wilson handling the starting rotation, where maybe he will allow his starters to go into 8 innings. Now, does he have to do that every single game? No. But if they're pitching like borderline perfect games kind of stuff, then yeah, of course, you definitely got to do that. Let them finish the game, because we saw last year when Scott Service didn't even allow his starters to finish, even when they were like on fringe, like one hitter or no hitter type performances, only to watch the tired bullpen just completely just throw their arms out. Especially when you had Andres Munoz in just very high leverage situations. So that's the starting rotation. If I were to pick the 5 in order, I'm going to say I'll give it to Logan Gilbert, then George Kirby, then Luis Castillo, then Bryce Miller, and then Brian Wu. Those are really the only changes that I really would have made, in my opinion. But maybe he did this like completely like out of order kind of thing. So what am I to know? But let's see what else he said. It looks like he didn't really speculate much on who's going to be the starters in that order. But it looks like, based on that list, it looks like it may be. But I disagree with that list personally. Now, going into Mariners bullpen, here is the preview of it. We got Andres Munoz, Gregory Santos, Colin Snyder, which those 3, if they are healthy, all 3 of them, that could be a huge 3-headed monster. Edward Bizardo, Trent Thornton, Cody Bolton, Taylor Saucedo, and Gabe Spire. On the injured list, Matt Brash, Troy Taylor, and Jackson Kowar. Now, here were the notes that he said. Projecting this group is always difficult given year to year and even week to week of relief pitching production. The group starts the season is rarely the group that finishes it. The absence of Brash and Taylor are notable. Dipoto said that they hope that Brash is back by the end of April, which might be a little bit optimistic, considering, though, contradicting, Dan Wilson said more like the middle of the season. So that's something to monitor there. Troy Taylor, who made a jump from Double-A to the big leagues, showed plenty of talent and maturity, which he really did. Like, he was at one point one of the top pitchers in the Mariners bullpen rotation. But there was a lat strain suffered during the offseason throwing, has put him behind schedule. He will not be ready by opening day. So already, and there's more, the rest of the projected bullpen are all currently on the 40-man roster and saw MLB time last season. Munoz is locked in as a closer, of course, but the setup men ahead of him are less certain. Santos has the talent to be effective in that role, but he couldn't stay healthy last season. So if this bullpen is healthy, like healthy as it pretty much was in 2023, with the exception of Andres Munoz, this could be the best bullpen in baseball. Just last season, they were more in the middle of the pack, and let me see what their rankings are in each seasons of the bullpen. I will go to the Mariners bullpen stats of 2022 because that's when they were one of the best bullpens in baseball. If not, they were possibly the best in all of baseball. But let's go to 22. Let's see, starters and bullpen. I really do love these stats that they give me. But ERA-wise, team, pitching, I really got to be better prepared about this. But going into the bullpen, Mariners bullpen in 2022, ERA-wise, they were the 6th best bullpen in baseball. And then going into 23, they were the 4th best bullpen in baseball. And then in the 24 season, they were 9th best. So for a team that was unhealthy last season, they still managed to pull out the 10th best, the top 10 bullpen in baseball. But this season, if the Mariners are really going to win that division or let alone make the playoffs, they are going to have a healthy bullpen. Like, Mariners need to have Matt Brash ready by half the season, hopefully by end of April. But with the way that he just throws so violently, I think it's still going to take time. Like, I still think middle of the season is going to be very more accurate. Then we got Troy Taylor, still very unclear when he's going to be back. I mean, let me look on the Twitter updates and see if there is anything about Troy Taylor. Doesn't really say anything about Troy Taylor on where his update really is. And then Jackson Kowar, like, we just don't know when he's going to be back at all. So those are things to look at. But if you can have everyone healthy, like, you can make up for the fact that Edward Bizardo is not someone that you trust. Trent Thornton, you can't really trust him. Like, Bolton, Saucedo, and Spire all make me nervous. Now, if you could have 2023 Spire and Saucedo and I guess Trent Thornton, I'll take it. But Bolton and Bizardo are the ones that make me nervous. Now, the Mariners definitely got lucky with Colin Snyder. But, man, Andres Munoz is a completely different pitcher from when he pitches at home and on the road. And then for Gregory Santos, the guy just has to be healthy because he really just didn't pitch that much at all. So hopefully that Mariners bullpen will be healthy, because if they are healthy, they are easily the best bullpen in all of baseball. And now we're going into infielders. Or I guess there's a little bit more. Man, I'm just all over the place. Mariners did sign some like minor league talents, like a guy from Japan, but not really much to say. And now we got infielders. J.P. Crawford, shortstop. Luke Raley, your starting first baseman. Jorge Polanco, your third baseman. Ugh. Donovan Solano, your first baseman and third baseman. Dylan Moore, second base to outfield. Leo Rivas, infield. And this new guy, Miles Mastrobroni. Did I even say that right? Probably not. But he was recently signed. Last season, how did he even do? He's 28 years old, so he's kind of a bit on his older side. Hasn't really done much. So, yeah, I think that infield core makes me very nervous. And I don't expect Leo Rivas and Miles Mastrobroni. I don't know how to say it, and I said it weird. But I don't expect those two to finish the seasons with the Mariners. I expect by end of season, I would think that Cole Young's going to be there. But let's go over every player. J.P. Crawford, who had a great 2023 season, then all of a sudden had a down year. Like, he was just really bad. It was just very painful to watch him. So he really needs to have like some kind of a 2021 or a 2024 season or 23 season to make any kind of impact for the Mariners. Luke Raley kind of had a slow start last season, but he finished the season strong to be one of the more consistent players on the Mariners. He's going to be first baseman. The only thing I'm nervous about is, although I don't really believe in matchups, doesn't really do well against the lefties, but I think he should be given more opportunities this time now that first base is pretty much his. Jorge Polanco, he is not a great third baseman. I don't really expect him to. It's just going to be difficult to watch. Like, granted, he was injured last season, and that may have affected his offense, but even a healthy Jorge Polanco, still can't trust him to play third base efficiently. And then you got Donovan Solano. He's like up into his upper 30s. Maybe going to be a first base or third base at best, but I don't know. Maybe they'll split time. Dylan Moore, as much as he's a fan favorite, everyone loves him. Utility player at best. He's not going to be your everyday player, and he better not be. Then you got Leo Rivas and then Miles. Can't really expect much out of them, which is why I'm expecting Cole Young to be a part of this infield core sometime in the season. I just hope that he has a fantastic spring training to the point that Dan Wilson will have to say, okay, you can start with the Mariners, which I do think he should at this point. He's at AA, and typically when you're a great prospect, you typically skip the AAA. So I do expect Cole Young to still be part of this team, and he's got to, because the infield depth is just really just bleeding to death. And if you can have Cole Young in there, maybe he can be taught to play third base. Maybe there could be some flexibilities for J.P. Crawford if he's willing to play other positions. Maybe I can look up and see if J.P. Crawford has played third base. I don't think he has. I think he's been ride and die with the shortstop. Last time he played third base was 2018 with the Philadelphia Phillies. He started in 4 of those games. He also started third base in 11 of those games in 2017. His defense, he's only had 1 error, so maybe if Cole Young plays shortstop, in my opinion, maybe he can play something like third base if Cole Young can play shortstop and fill that position very well, which I really hope he does. So that's my opinion. Now, here are the notes. Mariners need J.P. Crawford to bounce back from last season's injuries and struggles at the plate. Absolutely. He might never replicate his 2023 season, unfortunately, when he posted a 266 average, 380 on base percentage, which was actually really good for his level, 438 slugging, 142 hits, 35 doubles, 19 home runs, 65 RBIs. He had a 14.7 walk rate, but he's got to be better than his 202 in his 2024 season, which he was absolutely atrocious. Mariners added Solano to serve as part of the platoon with Raley at first base. He is also capable of playing second or third base, which is going to be tough to watch. And I thought watching Josh Rojas was going to be a disaster. Though he is not outstanding defensively. He's not. After not having his $12 million club option, this is about Jorge Polanco. Polanco signed as a free agent, 1 year, $7.75 million to play for third base with incentives. Mariners believe that the offseason surgery on the pellar tendon in his left knee may help Polanco return to his previous offensive form while playing third base is a better fit in terms of his range and movement. Moore is expected to see more of the bulk of the time at second base with either Rivas or Bliss. I forgot about Ryan Bliss. Could Cole Young, as one of the Seattle's top prospects, take over? But yeah, there's also the talk about Ryan Bliss, but got to see how he does in spring training and see if he can play at the major league level. Forgot about Ryan Bliss. Didn't really say much about him because second base right now is going to be Dylan Moore, but I think with the upside-wise, you would go with Ryan Bliss at least, or maybe go with Leo Rivas, but please do not make Dylan Moore your everyday guy. Now your outfield, which is not really much of a surprise. Got Julio Rodriguez, Randy Arozarena, and Victor Robles, who was the huge hot shot of the 2024 season when they brought him in as like a fringe 1-year guy, and then he got his 2-year extension because he played absolutely well for the Mariners. But the question is, can he actually sustain that success from his 24 season? And let me see where Victor Robles was at. He batted .328 with the Mariners with a .393 OBP. Had 30 stolen bases, so I think he'd be fantastic as a leadoff, but the problem is he going to be healthy is the big question. This is essentially the Mariners' daily outfield for the final 6 weeks of the season. The trio does not lack energy, swagger, or talent. Rodriguez is a perennial Gold Glove candidate in center field, absolutely. While his defense has been a constant since his MLB debut, the Mariners are hoping that his offense will be more consistent for an entire season, which it really needs to be, because there are seasons where it looks like he's just a total dud, and then he somehow makes it up in like he did last season. Started horribly, played horribly throughout the half, and then as Dan Wilson took over, he was just on fire. His struggles last season carried beyond July. Yes, it did. But slight changes to setup and swing and a similar approach at the plate pushed by Edgar Martinez led to the success in the final 2 months of the season, which is something to note. Mariners' semi-success at the end of the season was because of the hiring of Dan Wilson and Edgar Martinez. And now that we have Edgar Martinez and Kevin Seitzer, you would think that this offense should be able to respond much better. Robles' production is far from a certainty. A once heralded prospect for the Nationals, he was largely a disappointment in DC in 607 games, blah, blah. After signing with the Mariners for MLB minimum, Robles flourished in his new surroundings, posting a .328 average, .393 OBP, .467 slash line with 20 doubles, 4 home runs. Most scouts believe that Robles' potential production is somewhere in the middle of those two extremes, which he is not wrong. He is versatile enough to play center field if needed if Rodriguez takes a day off. Bradley may see some time. So that's something to consider, that although Robles had a really good season, can he sustain that success? Remains to be seen, but I just don't see it happening, unfortunately. I think if we see him as like a .270 kind of hitter, which you would think and hope that would be the worst case scenario, but the worst case scenario says .236. So that's something to consider, but maybe if you can average those two numbers out, maybe he can still be an effective player for the Mariners. And then we got catchers. Cal Raleigh and Mitch Garver, absolutely no surprise. Cal Raleigh, who has been one of the best catchers in all of baseball, had a record-breaking season, a career year, broke Mike Piazza's record, 100 RBI season. He was absolutely fantastic, with the exception of his bats just not consistent at all. And here's the notes. Cal Raleigh returns as one of the team's leaders on and off the field. He's arguably the best catcher in the American League, if not all of baseball. But can the Mariners continue to use him behind the plate so much? He caught more innings than any other catcher in baseball over the past 2 seasons. Due to his struggles at the plate last season, Garver was moved from full-time DH to backup catcher by midseason because Sebi Savala was just garbage. Can he move back from the full-time DH role? The Mariners would have to carry another catcher if Garver were to reestablish himself as an everyday player. I'm not buying it. I would not make Mitch Garver an everyday player. Just make him a backup catcher at this point. Just leave him there, because he also has injury problems himself, and that he's not great at T-Mobile Park either. Like, the numbers really prove it. So I would not play. I would keep Mitch Garver as a part-time guy, because one, there's other designated hitter options that you do have. Got Donovan Solano, if he's not playing in any positions. Mitch Haniger, I guess. There's other players that could be used. And also, you don't want to risk any more wear and tear and injuries on Cal Raleigh. So that's really all I've got to say. And now for designated hitter, Mitch Haniger. He said that this was a tough call since it seemed impossible to keep both Haniger and Garver on the roster for 25, which can't believe they're still both in the roster. It became clear early last season that Haniger can't play on an everyday basis. Nope. Particularly in the field, he can't. But could he take Garver's spot as an everyday designated hitter, which is probably more preferred? Some scouts believe that a reduced role might allow him to refine his offensive production and be more as a viable contributor. It's difficult to see the Mariners designating Haniger for assignment and eating all of that $17 million owed on his contract without at least trying to see some value from the situation. That's going to be the best role for Mitch Haniger at this point, is for him to be a designated hitter. Now, the question is, how did he even do as a designated hitter? Let's see what he did for this 2024 season. As a DH, in 83 at-bats, he hit 2 home runs, batted .265, .330. So with his limited time as a designated hitter in 25 games, he wasn't an absolute disaster. So maybe, and as a right fielder, this is how he did. 193, 276 OBP, 9 home runs and 34 RBIs in 86 games. So maybe, just maybe, if Mitch Haniger can stay healthy, and maybe if Edgar Martinez and Kevin Seitzer can fix him up, then maybe it can work for him to be a full-time designated hitter and just leave him there and not Mitch Garver. But also there's other options to consider. Ty Locklear, maybe him and Luke Raley can switch off from each other, play the platoon, but it really depends how Tyler Locklear really does for spring training. So it's something to absolutely consider. So Mitch Haniger, as long as he can stay healthy and play well and designated hitter, then there is room for him, especially with that $17 million that he is owed to the Mariners. So that is it for Mariners roster predictions. And now I just want to go into something really, I don't think it's going to be really quick, but it's going to be about the Mariners and their spring training roster invitees. Now let's read all of them. We've got infielder Michael Arroyo, Nick Dunn, Colt Emerson, Brock Roden, Ben Williamson, and Cole Young. So the ones that are going to be standing out the most are going to be Cole Young and Colt Emerson, and even Michael Arroyo. Arroyo spent much of his season in Everett. Colt Emerson spent much of his time in Modesto and went to Everett. Cole Young is now in AA. So those are the ones to watch. Maybe Cole Young can get a start by opening day, but what he needs to do is he has to have like a Julio-type performance of 22 in spring training to maybe have a shot for the roster. If he does, then he should, no question, be in there. But if he doesn't, maybe June is the estimated time of arrival, but hopefully sooner than later, because there needs to be some kind of spark in that infield. As for Colt Emerson, he's going to probably, at best case scenario, start at AA. But I think he'll be more suited to start at the A+ level. Same with Michael Arroyo. Now to outfield. Now this is my favorite. Lazaro Montez, the so-called Mariners version of Yordan Alvarez, Spencer Packard, and Ryland Thomas. Lazaro Montez is the one that sticks out the most. He was in Everett, but he struggled much of the season due to his strikeout problems. But he is someone to watch in spring training, and if he does well, maybe he'll have a much more smooth start to Everett and then get to AA level. Maybe best case scenario, if he really has it figured out in spring training, then he can start at AA, and then maybe the Mariners can give him a debut sometime in the season, but that's like the absolute best case scenario. Like Lazaro Montez has to play even more efficiently than he ever did when he was with the Modesto Nuts. Now we got catcher. The only one that we got, Josh Caron, Connor Charping, Harry Ford, Jacob Nuttingham, and Nick Raposo. Maybe one of those guys will get some kind of a spot in spring training, but I don't expect it. Harry Ford, you would think, is going to be a call-up of the future sometime this season because now he's in AA. Maybe if he plays his balls off, maybe he can get a spot. Maybe that will make Mitch Garver the designated hitter. Maybe that will make Harry Ford the backup catcher, but I think the more realistic scenario is Mariners are trying to trade him, so maybe they could use that spring training performance as a trade piece. Infield to outfield, Samad Taylor, who never really got much of a playing opportunity at all for the Mariners. Don't really think that's really a fit for him. Maybe to take over the spots of somewhere in infield, I don't know. Now for left-handed pitching, got Peyton Alford, Josh Fleming, Brendan Garcia, Austin Kitchen, and Drew Pomerantz. None of those really stick out to me, unfortunately, but if any of them do stick out to you, put it in the comments and I will stand corrected. Now for right-handed pitchers, these will probably stick out a little bit more. Got Luis F. Castillo, Tyler Cleveland, Hunter Cranton, Logan Evans, Neftali Feliz, Shintaro Fujinami. I'm really bad at Japanese pronunciations. I apologize because I'm Korean. Jesse Hahn, Surin Lau, Casey Lawrence, Adonis Medina, and Darius Valdez. You would think that maybe one of them will get a chance for the Mariners roster, but who knows? That's why there's going to be a lot to see in spring training. The ones that I would say really watch out for, Logan Evans is a one to watch, maybe Shintaro Fujinami, Lazaro Montez, Colt Emerson, Michael Arroyo, Cole Young, and Harry Ford. Those will be the ones to watch. So definitely looking forward to follow spring training, as I am planning to follow some of those games. But that's going to be it for the Mariners prospects to watch for the 2025 Mariners spring training. Now I want to get into this. This is going to be an absolute Mariners rant on my end. Let me mark the time of where I'm about to make that rant in this video. But man, it's very disappointing to see this. We have 5 Major League Baseball teams that are going into the more 21st century. We got the Cleveland Guardians, Minnesota Twins, Colorado Rockies, San Diego Padres, Arizona Diamondbacks. All 5 of those teams, they have a unique linear broadcasting setup, but they are also offering a streaming option of $99 in a year or $19 a month. And this can be done through the website. So there is that controversy with Major League Baseball where there's a blackout policy. So if you're in Seattle, like me personally, I have the Major League Baseball package, so I can watch every team except for one team, the Seattle Mariners. As a T-Mobile customer, it's really devastating to see that. Can't watch my own baseball team due to the blackout rules, and it is because the sporting industry, they're trying to keep the cable companies as alive as possible, including the Mariners. But here's the Mariners cable situation. It's on Root Sports. They're run by the Mariners. But here's the problem. They're hanging by a thread right now because the Seattle Kraken, the NHL team, Portland Trailblazers, the NBA, they terminated that relationship. And I believe that was before the 2024 season. Let me check and see when that was. When did the Kraken leave Root? They left Root Sports for the 2024-2025 season. So yeah, they left Root Sports on April 25th, 2024. So the cable industry is just bleeding to death, and the statistics really do prove it. They really do. In 2021, 56% of U.S. adults had cable or satellite. In July of 2024, it is now at 40%, and the average cable viewership dropped to 28% in all of 2024. They're trying to say that the recessions of 2008 and 9 caused a slowdown in growth of cable and subscriptions, which I don't really buy one bit. Yeah, sure, that was that little of a drop-off, but they still had the entire 2010s, and it was really when YouTube TV took over, Netflix, and all those streaming services, they just happened to take over. And number of cable subscribers is expected to decrease annually by 4.6%. So really, Mariners are just hanging by a thread with cable, which is why they're not providing any of these kind of services that the other 5 baseball teams I mentioned that they're doing, which is heavily disappointing. So let's take a look and see the Mariners. Mariners TV. Trying to see what their schedule looks like. So the Mariners are televising. Let me count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're televising just 7 games on the Mariners webcast. Pathetic. At least on Friday, that's when they are putting themselves on webcast, which, by the way, I'm planning to cover that game at 12:10 against the San Diego Padres. And then we've got this. Unbelievably on Root Sports, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They are covering just 7 games on Root Sports. The whole thing that they're passionate about on cable, they're only doing 7 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're only doing 15 games on spring training, which is an absolute shame. But let me tell you this, like, considering the situation and how frustrating it really is, this is what I would encourage all you Mariners fans. On those Mariners webcast games, make sure to stream everything. Stream those games. Put that game on your phone, even on your 9-to-5 job. Just put it on there. Maybe if the viewership goes up to the point where the demand is high enough where people don't have to do cable, maybe John Stanton will play ball and just hell with Root Sports, because the only reason I have Root Sports is only because of this YouTube channel, and so I can cover the games myself so you guys don't have to subscribe to cable. That's been one of my missions of this YouTube channel, is to provide a service for you guys, provide my own play-by-play, because we've got radio where you got to sit in the car, or if you have a radio yourself, but people don't really know what a radio is anymore, and radios have these ridiculous subscription things that you have to do, but I charge absolutely nothing. So until then, maybe I'm the guy to follow for Mariners baseball, which, by the way, I am planning, and I'm trying to get a goal of 100 Mariners games throughout the entire season of coverage. So that way I can show the entire community of Seattle that I do have a voice for the Seattle Mariners. But it is very disappointing to see that the Mariners are still hung up on cable so much. I mean, the cable fees are just absolutely outrageous. Not only do you have to pay for cable as a base, but then Root Sports made it so you have to pay extra just to access it, because they're charging the cable companies a bit more. So the cable companies are like, okay, fine, we have to charge this tier package, which is just absolute shame. But that's just to say of the Mariners, they're not really looking out for our fans at all. Like, they just really don't care. And we've got content creators like us that are just trying to keep them as relevant as possible. People like me, Mariners Mojo, Marine Lair, Jay Trident, Raise the Trident, Locked On Mariners, East Coast M's, or any Mariners content creator that you can think of. And yet, Mariners are just holding the average Joe and the fan base hostage on making them pay extra to watch Root Sports. Like, if it wasn't for this YouTube channel, I probably wouldn't have invested into Root Sports at all. I really do think the Mariners should be the 6th Major League Baseball team to put themselves in position to provide the subscription service where Mariner fans can access it all season long without any blackout problems. Or better yet, Major League Baseball, how about you just say hell with cable and just remove your blackout policy for a change? But that's my opinion on the whole cable and streaming service kind of controversy. Now I want to get into the final part of this show. I have a very special announcement. So on March 15th, I'm going down to Arizona for spring training for the Mariners game. Gonna not only watch the game, but Jay Trident Podcast and I are going to be down there together to do a podcast before the Mariners game. You know, doing something like this with my camera, a table set up, my laptop with me, and we're going to do this thing together where we're going to cover it. We're going to cover Mariners baseball. Would love to see you fans interact with us. Maybe we'll do some quick Q&As. I don't know. But it's going to be huge. Like, this is a very significant thing. And it was something that Jay Trident Podcast and I told me this morning, that he is good to go for March 15th as much as I am. So I will provide updates for you so far. And as of now, I will not be requiring any kind of donations at this time, because I am going with a group of friends where we pretty much like split the cost. But yes, I put myself in position where I will go to spring training, and as much as Mariners Mojo, they're asking for donations, good for them. You should also help their cause too. But until then, until I need some kind of donations, I'm not asking for any. But if you would like to donate to this channel, go ahead in the YouTube Super Chats or through my Mariners PayPal, or through my PayPal. It's in the description. Free to do so to help the cause. So, yep, that's the announcement. Going to be with Trident Podcast on March 15th. We'll provide more updates in the future, but right now it's on preliminary plans. But that's going to do it. Just wanted to say thank you very much for being part of this. Thank you for following my Mariners content. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification, and painfully saying, Go Mariners.